Thanks for joining the Prosperous Sellers Podcast. My name is Steve Yates, your host, and also CEO of Prime Guidance. I've got a special guest, Will Andrews. Will's with Maven Lane. Welcome, Will.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Great to be here.
Awesome. I have had the pleasure of working with you at numerous companies, and every time I talk, I realize I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and really appreciate all of your insights. So I thought it'd be very valuable to have you on the podcast and just kind of talk shop with you. So tell us a little bit about who Will Andrews is, some of your background, both work-wise and other, and what Maven Lane is as well.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Really appreciated our relationship. Especially, I would say I've learned a lot more from you. So if I ever was any form of smart, I definitely give you some credit too. You helped me cut my teeth in understanding how to sell on e-commerce. So my background, I started off in the military. So I spent 13 years in the military. Learned a lot about logistics, supply chain, leadership, and operations. Was deployed a bunch of different times. Really understood the value of culture and how to get people to do hard things in austere environments. And that's usually the best way to do that is with servant leadership. And then transitioned into the private sector after being deployed multiple times. Wanted to be around the U.S. a little bit more. And spent time in e-commerce fulfillment operations as well as omni-channel fulfillment operations. Worked at different places at Amazon fulfillment centers. Worked at Chewy. Also had a couple different customers I supported while working at DHL. So some large scale business to business distributions. And then my last couple of roles have really been in helping brands grow. So as the supply chain operations, and now where I'm at Maven, even on the selling side as well. So that's a little bit about me, my background. I'm married to my best friend. We have 5 kids. We're all on the spectrum. We're a little bit loud and rambunctious, but we are a very tight and interesting group.
Awesome. Yeah. You have a wealth of experience, and I love that the military side of your training really shines through in how you make decisions and how you build teams and everything. It's just it's interesting to sit back and watch how you operate and how you're able to rally teams together and how to solve operational challenges and so forth. Maybe, give a couple examples about some of the operational challenges that maybe you've overcome and how others might be able to overcome similar challenges.
Yeah, so I think, when you're selling online, delivering a really good customer experience is very hard. It's almost impossible in today's age with the expectations that the customers have if you don't have good integrated systems. You don't have to have the greatest system, but you have to have a integrated system that is connected to your operation, and your operation is built around however that system works. So recently at the organization I work for now, Maven Lane, we were selling through somebody else, and so we were essentially distributing to them and then supporting them with merchandising actions and advertising support. And then we went to selling on our own, and so that meant standing up every aspect of operations from essentially getting inside a warehouse, shipping it out, customer service, and then also just the connections, the digital connections. So we went through that. And over the span of the last year, we've implemented an ERP, a PIM. We're onboarded onto 12 new channels, onboarded onto a new 3PL, did an API integration with that 3PL. And we have essentially replaced, what we were doing before, or very close to it, in just a year's time, and doing it all on our own from scratch. So definitely a busy last 12 months.
Yeah, it's quite the undertaking. And, it's usually advisable do one thing at a time, then move on to the next, because, systems integrations, processes changes, and everything is hard for businesses to navigate. The fact that you had to do it in a short amount of time and do it kind of all at once is evident of your ability to kind of get it done, roll up your sleeves, and figure it out and make it happen.
Yeah, and I think the real key to, and this is what I would say to anybody that's in that quagmire of like, hey, I need to change, or I need to optimize my systems to give better customer service, because I know that's going to unlock selling, right? That's what we knew. We knew that we could really touch the customer ourselves in a way and just respond to them and really care about their needs. But we needed to be able to have, the ability to do that ourselves. And so, again, I go back to like understand whatever system it is that, can do that for you, and then build your operation around it. And then at this point, I would say where we do have a lot of just good things for us as leaders is e-commerce has been around a little while. People have done more and more of these implementations. And so while you might find somebody that's led one from start to finish, you can find people that have different experiences and backgrounds doing some of these things that are quick add-ons to your team and help you.
Yeah. So right now you sell bulky furniture items and stuff. What's your general path to successfully sell on marketplaces when you're selling something bulky, and what kind of challenges has that faced? How have you gotten around it? And any suggestions for those facing similar challenges with bulk items?
Yeah, so we sell. No, that's a great question, Steve. We sell, furniture from like a bar stool to a table and a cabinet. And so, when you're thinking about the difference in terms of that, and something a brand I supported before, which is where we sold apparel and so t-shirts. I mean, you're looking at the difference of like my average order weight went from a pound to now it's 50 pounds. And so it's just it's completely different in terms of your operational cost, because you're going to
Yeah.
have to store, you take up more space to store it. You are selling at higher price points, but it just basically means that your execution has to be even crisper, because every error that you have is multiplied because your product costs more to make, costs more to store, costs more to ship. And so those are all just required touches that you have to, as a e-commerce company, be able to mitigate and
Mhm.
fulfill. And so it's really important that you find either your own way of doing it well, or you find a 3PL like what we did, and we found somebody that knew what they were doing in this space, specifically in the bulky items, because not everybody is great at handling these, because
Yeah.
there's not a lot of equipment, that is geared to help anybody pick up a 50-pound item. It's literally, all the equipment is the
Mhm.
same as it's been for the last 20 years. And so it's just something you have to really pay attention to. And that's where, ironically enough, it comes right back down to what the military does very well, which is leadership and, servant leadership. And so that to me is, one of the key assets that you want to look at in your fulfillment team. You want to have that, because those are the people that are touching your product have to be well taken care of if they're going to take care of your product.
Yeah, yeah. Um, do you do you find that bulk items are more easily damaged? And what would you give as far as advice to people that are thinking about, okay, I have an item that I normally sell pallet wise to big retailers, but now I need to accelerate my e-commerce business. That means shipping onesies to customers. That changes the game, right? You've got to package things different. You've got to ship things different. Any advice on that front?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. One, it's know your product and what the value you provide to your customers really is. Like for us, it's furniture. So even there's at times what you're competing with when you're an e-commerce furniture player is you're competing with the people who could have a showroom, and so you want your product to arrive not only without any damage to the actual product, but we care about how the outside of our box looks, because it's part of like what people
The
pay an
experience.
elevated price for in that experience.
Mhm.
And so that's very important. And so again, what I've told my supply chain is let's do more than what's required to get it exactly how the customer wants it to them. And so we have not tried to save on packaging, because if you, and I get it, I understand you're selling a million widgets, a dollar matters, but
Mhm.
the reality is that if that extra dollar per box gets you the right corrugate strength that will endure the 4 to 7 different touches that likely these types of things are going to take, it's worth it. And then the other piece that I would say that's very important is you have to find a mix between being in enough spaces, enough DCs, so that you can get the right coverage, i.e. seller fulfilled prime, or into Amazon's network, whichever you decide. But
Mhm.
you have to find the balance between that and your inventory movement costs to get it there, because
Yeah.
that there is a bit of a dance, because like I said at the beginning,
Mhm.
bulk is just harder to move in bulk, than your other smaller items that a lot of people do very well on marketplaces with.
Yeah, there's not a lot of 3PLs that actually have enough facilities throughout the country strategically positioned to even leverage SFP for in a lot of cases. But if you do have the luxury of having a 3PL partner that has many different facilities, like you said, it's really a finance game, right? How much is it going to cost me to inbound it? How much is it going to cost me to outbound it? How much is it going to cost me to store it in different facilities? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it to decipher whether it makes sense and to what scale.
Yeah, and
Um,
how much you think you can do well, because like for us at Maven, like I feel confident in being able to run these type of facilities, but I don't feel confident on the capital required to get them off the ground and start while you're scaling, because you really have to be at a much higher volume rate to have the right type of facilities, like you were saying,
mhm.
which it wasn't possible for us to start. So, which is why we found a partner. And so, like,
Yeah.
that's why I said, like, we understood, like, hey, we can make great product. We can really specialize in how we present it to the customer and how we take care of the customer. But we're gonna have somebody else be that logistics arm for us, and we're gonna interface with them really well.
Yeah, for sure. And how have you generally felt about FM seller fulfilled prime versus FBA versus FBM? Where do you see the use cases and any particular challenges that you faced regarding SFP specifically and how you've gotten around those?
Yeah. So one, I mean, the sales uplift is there, right? Like we at least there's for me, there's the understanding that the sales uplift is there. I think it depends on what you're selling,
Hmm.
where you might have more flexibility in your decision. And really, it kind of goes for me on a scale. If your product is small on this side, you're probably you're better off, almost always, you're going to almost be better off in FBA, because it's
Yep.
just really hard to replicate the speed, the amount of
Cost efficiency. Yeah.
exactly, the cost
Mhm.
efficiencies, but just also the
Mhm.
returns of it. Just there's a lot of things that you yourself have to do very well.
Yeah.
And while you can do very well in a single distribution node model, if you do your own manufacture, something like that, you're just not going to be able to compete on the customer experience. And if you do, you'll have to use elevated shipping options, which then you're spending it. So I think the smaller your product, right, you're probably better off in FBA. They also are pretty competitive there. But as you start to get bulkier, that's where I think if you find the right partner, or if you can do it well yourself, depending on what your product is and what your abilities are, there is cost savings. However, I would say is that it's so much easier, and it was so much easier for me. Like for example, when I was at Grunt Style and we were selling e-commerce, but for Amazon, I only did FBM when we went out of stock on
Yeah,
FBA,
as
which
a
wasn't very
backup fulfillment method, right?
yeah, it wasn't very often. And the
Mhm.
reality is then it was just like, hey, I got to keep the inventory levels right at Amazon. And so it was,
Mhm.
yeah. And then it was just for me, managing fulfillment is just, hey, am I keeping pace with the replan plan? Right.
Mhm.
Um, but now, now that I do it for FBM, I mean, everything has to be automated. And that's the only way it works for us, is that I don't have to do anything. The systems are all integrated. When my 3PL
Mhm.
scans it as shipped, I automatically have my ERP pasting the tracking number and, everything else to Amazon for me in the background. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do, and have very success of maintaining the Amazon metrics, because they require operational excellence. And I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into, is like, hey, I can do this myself. I'll just figure it out with spreadsheets. And it's like, you might be able to, sure, but it's going to detract from probably one of your core competencies, which is making great product or taking care of customers, whatever it is, with stuff
Mhm.
you could just get some system to do for you.
Yeah, and also, you got to spend your time where you're most valuable. I see too many entrepreneurs that they started a business and you're talking to them and they're like, "Oh, I'm out in the warehouse right now helping out or whatever." It's like you shouldn't be doing that. You're way more valuable. Delegate, hire the right people, do those things so you can actually spend time driving the strategy, driving the business forward, architecting things, right? Building things. Um, when you move to, in your experience, from uh, FBM, merchant fulfilled, to FB or seller fulfilled prime, which would be the same as if it was FBA, Amazon quotes a 50% increase in sales uplift. What have you seen anecdotally anyway, as far as a sales lift?
Yeah, so I would say with the smaller items, like for example, when I was selling apparel, absolutely saw the uplift of 50 to even 70%. Um, like I said, and that was easy to see, right? Because for us, it was
Mhm,
either our FBA sales or our FBM sales. And if I had,
mhm.
our best seller not in FBA, it was no longer a bestseller.
Yeah.
So I think on the smaller products, it's absolutely there. For our side, we've seen maybe a 20 to 35% lift, depending on there. I
Okay.
mean, our smaller stools, the more important it is to have Prime because those are the ones people sometimes want very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but we're a little bit benefited from the larger items in one way because we can still be seller fulfilled Prime and get 2-day delivery just because of the expectation of the the bigger
Mhm.
dimensional products from Amazon.
Yeah, I think I was going to estimate like maybe 30%, because it really comes down to expectations, consumer expectations. This is something I need today, tomorrow, the next day, and competitive scenarios. A lot of your furniture competitors, they don't have SFP in place, and they are not leveraging FBA. So the consumer's willingness to say, you know what, I'll take a longer shipping time, because it's all of them are longer shipping times, is more digestible. Like we just bought some vanities for 2 upstairs bathrooms that we remodeled earlier last month. I had to wait, over a week to get them. Did I want them in, fast order? Yes, because we had granite and stuff that we were trying to put together on top of them. But the reality is, all of them were slow to ship. So when you're in that situation, you got to just position yourself to be the most competitive you can be. And stools, of course, is a lot more competitive on fast shipping, but versus some bulkier furniture options. But nonetheless, it's important, and it's trying to understand how much relevance is there in sales growth, so you can understand what are the operational costs you can absorb that may pay for itself with those uplifts in sales.
Yeah, and then what can you maintain too, right? Because
Mhm,
that's the other hard part is that again, if you're going to do SFP, you have to then perform at the expectations of how Amazon would do it if they had it in their facilities, which is challenging. And
mhm,
so that's elevated tracking, validation. There's elevated on-time delivery, and then there's
mhm.
pre-cancellations, which those are all just things that you have to be really good at from an ops perspective. And so I think that's important that you have that ironed out and mapped out. Um, Again,
Yeah.
the good news is it's not hard. Truly, it's not. The hardest part is setting up the series of operational routines that makes it simple. And that just
Mhm.
takes a little bit of time on the front end, and some know-how. But once you've done that, like for me, maintaining it now is not like an
Yeah.
overarching task because it's just part of what my team does.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge from all the clients that I've helped kind of move to SFP is, do you have the infrastructure to have it in the right locations to make it cost effective to get to the customer within 2 days without having to escalate any shipments, or move it to a faster shipping method? And then can you put Saturday or Sunday shipping in place? And oftentimes that to me seems so easy to do, and it's such a hard thing for a lot of companies to kind of get their head around, that they have to do something. But if you're able to give a small team to ship either Saturday or Sunday, you're able to achieve that metric. And then it's a matter of, okay, do I have because you have to have percentages that you have to meet for 1 day delivery, 2 day delivery, et cetera. Do I have the inventory spread out properly? That I'm always going to hit those metrics, because you never want to be in a situation where all of a sudden you're disconnected from SFP because you failed all your metrics and you got kicked out of the program. So it's that initial learning curve, initial building of the infrastructure, I think, is the most challenging. But operationally keeping you going, you should have the right systems and processes to keep it flowing.
Yeah, and that's it's a fun part, right?
Mhm.
But it's
Mhm.
it's a challenge because then your demand planning is by warehouse, and for those of the anybody else watching the podcast that is in the realm of inventory management, we all know like, hey, the more locations I have to manage it at, the harder it is for me to do it really well.
Yeah.
and without excess inventory. And so it's like, that's what you said. It was very spot on. It's like the balance of what do you
Mhm.
have capabilities to do and how much
Mhm.
value can you then give back to your customers by being in multiple locations.
You mentioned you rolled out an ERP and other systems. Have you leveraged some of those systems to help with their forecasting capabilities so that you can serve those
Yeah.
warehouse locations and manage the inventory more effectively?
Yep. So we have, as part of our demand model that we built into an algorithm ourselves, is what the ERP spits out to us. So it tracks for us usage rates by location, and so I can get that based off of the last two, whatever intervals that I choose from, and it's giving me what has been shipped
Yeah.
and or what has been sold, and so that's helpful. Right, when you're growing a business, it's challenging because you're then adding on like future growth projections on top of that, and so it's a lot of check and adjusting, if you will. But definitely using systemic demand tools is critical.
Yeah, for sure. With the advent of AI, has that changed how you're doing things? What kind of things do you use AI for?
And I was interested. I was so like, I don't know about this when I first heard about it. But we use it for a lot, really. We use it to a lot in the content space. So there's some really cool things that are up and coming within, content that we are exploring and looking into to making very effective for us. And that's with both, image making, but also content and copyright that
Mhm.
we were doing. So there's a lot of good uses that we're putting into place on the selling side, and then on the operational side, we do leverage it within customer service to answer things that are very, simple. Where's my order? Give me an update on this, or this.
Yeah.
Um, and those types of things, just the commitment to allowing it, because really all it is you have to be proactive in what you want, how you want things done. You have to be prescriptive. And so because we operate off of standard work, we're taking things that people used to do that took a lot of time, that were hard, and we haven't we haven't replaced anybody with it, but what we've been able to do is take our current team members, take away a lot of the mundane tasks they were doing. Now we've got them, way more engaged in demand planning, or
Mhm.
making those types of adjustments that they need to on the content that really a human eye is needed for, specifically with color or those types of variational decisions. And so it's really helped our team in short.
Yeah, I think that AI has not replaced people, but it's made us all a lot more efficient. And what we need to outsource may change. So, for example, copywriting and image generation and so forth. A lot of times, you can do at least an initial pass yourself, and then you can always hire a graphic designer to kind of take it across the finish line, or whatever you may need to do keyword research to make sure you're implementing the right keywords, but trying to actually make it into phrases that make sense and highlight key benefits and features. Now you've got an AI tool that can get you 80% of the way there, and then human elements can tweak and optimize from there. So it's an exciting time. I really love this stuff. I've got so many AI tools I use. In fact, I just switched to a Google Pixel phone because they have Gemini AI that's built into it and so forth. And I've been an Apple guy for the last couple of years, but Apple, intelligence just seems too antiquated right now with "Hey Siri," and it says, "Would you like me to ask ChatGPT?" No, I just want you to tell me the right answer.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so I love playing around with it and love helping companies figure out how to get the most of it. And they're each different, in what they're strong at. Like I like Claude a lot for copywriting and contracts and things like that. Um, Images, they all kind of like, leapfrog over one another right now.
Yep.
So how about analysis? Do you use it to help you analyze PPC performance, or just business performance, help you decipher things that are going on?
Yeah, so I use it for sales analysis, inventory analysis, and opportunity analysis. So we feed, a series of reports into it every week as part of our trade deck routine. And so then
Mhm.
we'll have, human analysis element, and then we'll have the AI analysis element. Where it's really good is more like on a regression analysis, like help, where I can, plug in like 20 to 30 of my top performing MPNs, and it'll pick out five that it believes would be the best. And then I can go try to optimize those campaigns I have centered around that, at least to
Mhm.
check and adjust. It's good to get ideas from it, based on different criteria for sure. And we definitely leverage it on a weekly basis for that.
Mhm. Tell me about team building. Like, obviously, you've been in several fast-paced environments. Just in the last couple of businesses that you've been involved in, all of them grew rapidly, and you've had to build out teams pretty extensively. What do you recommend to people that are thinking about building out teams, particularly when they're scaling fast? And what are some of the things that should be considered or implemented?
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is a hard thing, for a lot of small businesses, and I think one of the primary reasons you hit on it at the beginning is that there has to be a team builder slash integrator, and then there's the visionary of the company, and
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily have to match in types of roles or whatever like that, but you do have to have a segregation because it's very hard. It would be very hard for me to be good at all the things I'm going to talk about right now if my boss, Ari, wasn't like just building the future, making
Mhm.
decisions towards the future and like helping make sure we're
Mhm.
picking the right new products and like again living in the future and keeping a strategy in front. Hey, this is how I want the brand to be. And then
Yeah.
I'm in the execution integration role. And so I think
Mhm.
that's the first element to building the team is make sure the team builder isn't the one trying to do everything because,
Mhm.
I feel for a lot of CEOs because they're trying to do it all. And it's very hard to be a visionary and the team builder because everything I'm going to talk through requires time.
Yeah.
And that's just hard as the primary
Mhm.
visionary and, usually fiduciary, accountable person to do all that well. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, but when it comes to building teams, I think you have to pick the right people, and they have to match your core values, whatever they are that you want for your company. That to me is the first barometer. If you don't pass that,
Yeah.
they're not going to fit in well with you, and they're not going to present or provide
Mhm.
the experience that you want to sell your product to your customers with. And then I'm very big on when it comes to team building. I ask people this question when I start any team: How many of you woke up today and were ready to do a terrible job? How many just said, "I can't wait to be bad at what I'm going to do today"?
Mhm.
And I've worked obviously in a lot of shift type environments with, warehousing, manufacturing, different things like that,
Mhm.
even, in the military with platoons and, different units. So it's
Mhm.
always rivalry or competition, and people are always like, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. There's always this they, right? And so you just ask them that question. Do you think they came in and said, I can't wait to set the next team up for, failure? And you just be
Mhm.
upfront about it, but then what that means is you have to then assume positive intent. If none of us did
Mhm.
today, then I myself have to assume positive intent that everybody else is thinking just like me, that they came in ready to do their very best. And when you start with that approach with people, one, you get a much better response. And then
Mhm.
two, people feel a lot more safe. And if they feel more safe, they're going to tell you what their problems are. And for me, if you tell me what your problems are, I can help you solve them. And
Yeah.
so that's where I think, those few elements, pick the right people that match your culture, have your team leader have the time to invest in people and systems and processes. But then you have to have a culture of where, hey, it's failure is okay because that's how you learn. And then we're going to get better together.
Yeah.
Those things usually equate to really strong teams.
That's one thing I learned at Amazon. They like to run fast, fail fast, and adapt fast. And I think a lot of people are timid about running fast because they want to have all their ducks in a row. And I think that everyone's going to have failure. You have to accept failure, and you have to realize that, like you said, it was this person intending to fail, or why did it fail, and what can we learn from it, and how do we adapt? And I think that's a really important element to keep the business, going well, and culturally, everyone excited about what you're all together, doing, like to better the company, to service your customers, and so forth.
Yeah, and I think that's really helpful, like, when you have that one vision as well, right? Like, that's I guess, the closing piece of when you're building a team you can't have splintered leadership. You have to
Mm,
have singular leadership. I try my best to decentralize that, meaning, give as much autonomy to my junior leaders as possible. And you can do this through measurement very, very easily, where you can give them, hey, keep it within this metric and escalate to me if it gets above it. And we'll work through how to handle it, right? So then you can get very comfortable with how they manage through challenges. But
mm.
one of the ways that I think are really great at like getting a team that will just do almost anything you ask them to do. And then at that point, you're just a bunch of problem solvers. And then you're dangerous, like in terms of what you can go do.
Yeah. The aligned vision is something that I think a lot of companies lack, and that's another thing I learned, early on at Amazon was everyone had the same understanding of what their leadership principles are,
Yeah.
and everyone aligned to that. They have 14, I think it's now 16 leadership principles that, if something didn't align with one of those principles in a meeting, it was like, hey, we're going to stop this conversation here. It doesn't align with this leadership principle. Let's obviously change course. It was very impressive that as the business grew so drastically, there was still this kind of culture that all aligned on the same goals, objectives, and visions. And I think that is something every company could probably learn from.
Well, yeah, you're right, because you were on, the corporate side and I was
Mhm,
on the fulfillment side, and
mhm,
I have the exact same experience, which is
mhm.
usually not always the case, right? Where
Yeah.
sometimes at the corporate headquarters that culture
Mhm.
isn't as firm. Maybe it is at the or vice versa, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Definitely the focus on a core set of values and then abiding by them, inculcating them into all you do. Amazon's done as well as any company ever, really.
Yeah. And you coming from the warehouse side of things, the operational elements that they put in place for future growth. You talked about Ari being focused on the future. Jeff Bezos did a really good job focusing on the future and saying, we're going to ignore Wall Street's pressures. We're going to
Yep.
do what's good for the business long term. And this infrastructure is going to be our key differentiator. And we're going to offer services to customers that they're not even asking for yet. Like you probably remember when they started doing Sunday delivery,
Yep.
or I remember when they first offered 2-day delivery, and back in those early e-commerce days, consumers weren't asking for that. They were
No,
they were
people were
customers.
like, we almost didn't trust it. We're like, what is this?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
But they had the vision. They knew that was going to be a strategic differentiator that others would have hard time competing against, and it would that infrastructure would help them really scale and be successful. Um, so I always love to analyze businesses big and small. What are they doing right, and what can we learn from? Have you noticed, like now with things changing so drastically, we don't just have an A9 algorithm. Now we have Cosmo and Rufus that are also analyzing on Amazon and deciphering products and so forth. Have you deviated any of your keyword research or product page optimizations according to these new AI components?
So we have leveraged search results and it fed them into different, AI analytic tools. What we
Mm,
have then done with the content is, looked for it to rank across a couple of different ways. We look at our product. So we're taking like the key elements of what it means to sell our product. So, we sell furniture. So it's a backless chair or it has a back, it has no arms or it has arms, or
yeah.
some of those sell, it has a footrest, it doesn't, it's got a saddle seat, it's got a swivel seat. Those are the types of things that people are searching for, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
taking that type of perspective of like, this is what we have to offer. And then we're trying to see what against those types of features keywords are available and people really are looking for, so that we can make sure that we are accentuating what our products have and the value they bring, but we're also making sure to word it in a way that people are already looking for those elements and those values that our products bring. So, and
Mm-hmm.
AI is helping us do that, because with a lot of products, it would be almost, and with the amount of searching that we're doing through, and we're talking huge spreadsheets of data of keywords that we're synthesizing into this to be able to hopefully get the best results. But then we can test it, right? And then like you said, we have to look at it with a human element just to make sure that it matches our brand and what we want to be about as a company. But we're definitely trying to basically use it to have a better insight to what the customer is actually asking for.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I'd like to remind the audience is don't swing the pendulum one way too far. Like, for example, the old school keyword research needs to continue, but now you're adding on the elements of like, how does the image portray the product? If I'm saying this item is suited for the beach in text, but I don't show it shown on a beach, then the relevancy score is much less when ChatGPT or Rufus or something is trying to decipher it. And really understanding the types of questions that people are asking, and how could you potentially add those into your FAQs and things that are more than just keywords. They're going to align with a search engine. I mean, a new AI, chat bot that's now deciphering this, and also implementing attributes with a lot more skill and precision, because these tools are looking at the whole scope of the product. In the past, it didn't really look A9 didn't really look at reviews and
Right.
didn't really look at all of the attributes. It was looking at on-page keyword content and back-end keywords that it was intentionally crawling. Now it's looking at all of the attributes and saying, does this match my search query head to toe across
Right.
all of those? And I think customer sentiment is actually one of the biggest. You have the least amount of influence, but attributes, you have a ton of influence.
Exactly. And that's the one that we're trying to focus on is, how is it that they're searching for those values that our
Yeah.
product provides? And are we matching the way we are to what they're searching so that they will show up on our page, not only through, paid search, but obviously what you're hoping for is just through natural search.
Organic. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great, Will. Anything else that you want to add to share to the audience, or?
I have had a great time. I would say it's interesting. I was talking to my wife about it the other day. I was like, I don't think anybody as a kid, I know I didn't grow up saying like, man, I want to be like an expert in selling online and moving, connecting systems or anything like that. But one thing I will just say over the last really 10 plus years since I've been out of the military and mainly in e-commerce fulfillment is it's fun. I think that's the one thing that I do appreciate is that it's not ever like there's very rarely the same day or even weeks, week over week, day
So
over
true.
day. And so it's
Yeah.
fun. New
So,
challenges all the time.
so true. I think it's important that you do something that you love to do. And there's this country song that says, basically do something you love and call it work.
Yeah.
And to me, I always thought that was great. And I've had the pleasure of always loving what I did throughout my entire career. And it's aligned well. And part of what aligns well with me is I love solving challenges. I know you do too.
Yeah.
You would like fixing things. We like solving things, calculating and deciphering what's the plan and strategizing how to fix it. In e-commerce, it's a beautiful thing because it is always changing and it always gives you that opportunity. From week to week, it differs. And so embrace it, right?
Yep.
And enjoy the ride.
Amen. No, well said, Steve. Well said.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Will. Why don't you tell people if they want to reach out for you or the brand Maven Lane, how they should reach out?
Yeah, check us out, www.mavenlane.com. You can hit contact us. You can ask for me. I'll get back to you very shortly. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, Steve.
Awesome.
Like I said, we've worked together in the past, numerous companies. Always enjoyed hanging out with you, learning from you. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Will. Have a good one. And for those that would like to reach out with me, feel free to reach out at primeguidance.com. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.